1 million people across the world die by suicide each year. That's one suicide every 40 seconds. But what drives a person to take their own life when there are so many people in hospitals right now who are fighting to stay alive? You're going to be hearing a really powerful story of a lady who attempted suicide several times and even ended up being a call girl. And I also visited a bridge known as the Suicide Bridge in Bristol and had quite an experience there. And also later we have Peter Gibson, director of the Samaritans at the Central London branch. So if you want to get in touch at any point during this show, please do email chris@chrissybshow.tv. You can also give us a call if you want to share your experiences on 020 7686 6300. This is a live show and we'd love you to participate as well. So just to give you a few stats now about suicide, I mean, these are quite shocking. As I said, the first 2 million a year die by suicide. One suicide every 40 seconds. And it says here, more people die by suicide each year than by murder and war combined. And it's estimated that approximately 5% of people attempt suicide at least once in their life. And also between 10% and 14% of the general population have suicidal thinking throughout their lifetime. That's a huge amount. Just read one more for you. Suicide is the second biggest cause of death worldwide among 15 to 19-year-olds. And 100,000 adolescents die by suicide every single year. Those stats are so shocking. But if you do, as I said, if you do want to get in touch, you can also Facebook us at the Chrissy B Show and also tweet Chrissy B Show. Now, just to introduce our first guest, let's take a look at this video.
This is the street that I grew up on. I came here in 1968 with my family from Mauritius, and this is where a lot of my torment started from. I'm revisiting this house after many years. My name is Natalie, and this is where my journey started. I haven't been here for about 20 years. It's mixed feelings at the moment, what I'm feeling, because as I look at the house, it's bringing memories. Some good, some really not so good. I just remember go-karting with my sisters and brothers down this hill, all the way down. There was a separation between my parents. My mum had her room, which is the one here with the bars, that was her bedroom. And then at the top, there was my dad's room. So the whole house was, we just had this separation with my mum and dad. It was so traumatic as a child. I remember my father, who was a pervert, he would come into the room and he would sexually abuse one of my sisters. Although it didn't happen to me, I used to feel like it was happening to me because I watched it from the age of probably 7 till I was 16 years old. He used to tell us we would grow up to be prostitutes. The abuse really had a terrible effect on me because from the age of probably 7, I just had this desire to die. I used to cut myself all the time on my wrists. I used to cut my wrists. I used to just sit there cutting. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was because of the torment of living in this house and my father and the things that I'd seen, the sexual abuse. This went on for years, just wanting to cut, overdose, drink, everything I could do. Even when I used to go to work from this house, I used to stand at Archway Station and think, I'm going to jump, I'm going to jump, I'm going to jump. When I left this house, I was 18 years old. I married the first guy that took any interest in me, and he just happened to be a professional footballer at the time. I remember, even with the suicidal thoughts that I had, it carried from when I was brought up in this house into my marriage. I'd come out of one abuse from my dad, and then I'd gone into another abuse with this man. I remember one day when I took the tablets was when I came home and I caught him in bed with somebody. Because I had such low self-esteem, all I could do was look at both of them, again running to the tablets, taking an overdose, find myself in hospital. They called my husband, and in them days they used to put a tube inside your throat, And I remember just waking up and seeing my husband in front of me, but seeing these tablets just going past. And I remember my husband saying to me, "Why don't you just die? Why don't you just die?"
Okay, we have Natalie with us here. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, it's not a very pleasant subject to talk about, obviously, but the reason, when you were even telling me before, the only reason you're here is because you want to help people through your story, because you've been through hell.
Yes.
But you've also come out on the other side.
I have, yeah.
So that's what the aim of this show is, to actually show people, no matter how you're feeling right now, things can always get better. Yeah. So tell us, so you were having suicidal thoughts from age 7?
Yeah, I did. I can remember in the home I found some tablets, and on this tablet it had the letter P, and it could be P for paracetamol, for whatever, but at that age I remember thinking it said poison, and I took it.
So you actually attempted?
Yeah, I took it, yeah, I took it. So this desire was there, and I think it was there because the house was so, it was just traumatic living in this house. I had loads of brothers and sisters, and where my father was, he ruled the house with, we had respect for him, we were frightened of him, we were fearful of him. But if he came home and we were making a noise, he would lock us up in the cellar. Now, I don't know if you could see in that video, but the house was huge. There was 7 rooms, 2 kitchens, 2 toilets, so it was a massive house. So can you imagine, in them days, we had no central heating, only 1 room had radiators. So to be put in the cellar, it was freezing, there were mice, rats, whatever was there was no light, and he would just put us in there, and we would just stand there as children, just stand there.
Just for making noise?
Just for making noise. So already, you know, and then I would go to school, and I would never see other kids, they looked okay. So having to go back into this house, so my desire was, I didn't want to be here. So that's where it started from. I just had, and then with my father being a sexual abuser as well, it was horrible watching him. I mean, he's passed away now, but he would just come into the room and there were times he would just take my sister out the room, just pick her up, take her out. I never followed him, of course, I was in bed, but there were times where she shared the room with us in another bed, and he would come in, and he would be on his hands and knees, just waiting, just to make sure that we were all asleep. Because I got so used to watching him, I'd always be awake, waiting for him. So I'd be under the sheets just watching him pounce on my sister. But he could have been there for half an hour, I don't know, because as a child you're just watching. So the desire of me not wanting to live, because I just thought this is a nightmare, even as a child. Did you have any
happy memories as a child?
Do you know what? I can't. It's really hard, because I'm sure all my sisters and brothers have their own stories. Do you know what I mean? I mean, but because it was just so, my dad was just so strict. I just always wanted to just not be here. I just never wanted to be here. So as I said in that story, by the age of 18, I started working in the West End, and this guy just happened to take a shine to me. And do you know what? It's my way of escape. I thought, I've got to get out of this house. That's
so was that the only reason you got together with him?
Yeah.
It wasn't like an attraction, or really nothing?
Nothing, because what did I wasn't even, you know how everybody has like their first boyfriend, and you know, you have that I wasn't allowed to have all that, because my dad, he was just so strict that one day he caught me talking to someone, and when I came home, oh my days, he was not only abusive with the belt, he was abusive with his mouth. You know, he would call me all the names, and you know, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, and you know,
in the video that he said you're going to be a prostitute.
Yeah, you're going to be prostitutes. No, prostitutes, all of us, not just me, all the girls. But that's how we would be. You know, we would be prostitutes if we saw us talking, because he had a warped mind, I suppose. I don't know, but
so I can understand wanting to escape, But then it's like you went from one
Yeah.
bad situation.
I went to one bad situation
even
to
worse.
another. But I remember one time, I remember when I was 16 years old and my dad had gone away. He went on holiday. And while he was away, I'd had my appendix out. And I don't know if you know anything about having an acute appendix, but it's really painful to the point that they say if your appendix bursts, you could die, basically. Mine burst. So I ended up in hospital. And I've got 2 scars. I've got one appendix scar and I've got a second scar where the tube, they had to drain me out. And I remember my dad coming back from holiday and my mum telling him that, you know, your daughter nearly died. And he said, no, she probably had an abortion. So for me, my dad hated me. He hated us. So I didn't want to, I just had this desire, I shouldn't be here. I'd never wanted...
What about your mum? How was the relationship with her?
Well, my mum, it was sad really because she was always battling with him, trying to save us all the time. If he'd lock us up in the cellar, get those children out, but she couldn't do anything. My mum was illiterate, so she depended on my father, do you know what I mean? She couldn't read, she couldn't write, and he, you know, so she depended on him for everything. And
so you were thinking then that suicide was the only the escape, because
you
just couldn't, because that was your life basically. You were born into that house, born into that life. You thought that's what life was all about, and of course you'd think, well, if this is what life is like, I don't want this.
I don't want to be here. There were times when he'd put us in the garden in the summertime, and in the 70s you used to have really great summers, really hot summers, and we'd be kneeling with a brick on my head, kneeling down with a brick, and just... I can't remember how long we were there for, just for being, I don't know, playing ball. You know, you used to play the balls on the wall and he'd say, you're breaking the house, go outside, put a brick, and he would just lie, you know, just kneel there with a brick on our head in the garden.
So you escaped? Escaped. With this man?
Yeah.
Now, did things start off nice with him? Because you said in the video he was a professional footballer, so he must have had quite a lavish lifestyle for a while.
Do you know what? You know, we travelled, always 5-star. You know, when if I went to the club, you know, we would sit in the VIP. You know, all those little things. But you know what? I really did it to escape because I didn't really know him. If I tell you how long I met him, I met him within 4 weeks.
You got together with him, like you met him and then
married.
Married in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not even a year.
That's crazy.
I know. That's desperate. That's not even crazy. That's desperate. But at the time, he must have been so into me to go through with it because he was a professional footballer. I'm sure he could have, you know, I don't know what happened, but it happened. And that's the truth. Sometimes I'm a bit embarrassed to say that because I can't believe it myself. How did I do that? And how did my parents allow it? My dad allowed it because he was happy because he was a footballer. So he loved football, so he was like, great, you know. So you could have good conversations about football with him. But it was a nightmare for me because I was married to this man for 8 years, and the whole 8 years I just wanted to die. I used to cut myself.
Because of him?
Because of him. He was abusive, he used to beat me, and I could never tell anyone. Could never tell anyone.
Why not?
Because, do you know what? Because he was young and his career was just starting up, and I couldn't... because, you know, every now and then he would score a goal and he might be in the newspapers. I couldn't say this is what this man is doing to me because I thought his career, you know, he just wouldn't have a career and he was just, I don't know, I just protected him. But I was too, and I think because of my childhood as well, I'd got kind of used to the abuse, if you know what I mean. I just got used to that kind of...
It's all you knew,
It's all like, I didn't, yeah. So it was like, oh, well, okay, I'll just keep quiet. But for 8 years, I used to cut myself. I used to stand on the chair. I remember one day, I think he was having affairs outside. But I remember standing on a chair and putting a rope around, you know, the bulbs that have the lead, you know, you just tie it. I remember standing on this chair and rocking and waiting, thinking, if this chair goes, that's it, that's going to be me. It never happened. In the end, I just took it off, sat down again, you know. But this was my life, you know.
We're gonna go to a quick break, and then after, because things got even worse for you, didn't they? So stay tuned because Natalie's going to tell us more about her story, and I'm also going to be showing you some famous people that also took their own lives as well. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to the show, and today we're speaking all about suicide, and Natalie's been telling us her story. But just I closed the page, didn't know that was clever. Okay, just to let you know about some people, famous people that actually took their own life. Let's take a look here. Now the first one here, Kurt Cobain, who was obviously the musician, an American singer, songwriter and artist who founded the famous rock band, as you'll know, Nirvana, in 1985. Now apparently he was in Munich, Germany on a tour on the 1st of March 94, and he was diagnosed with bronchitis and laryngitis. The next day he took a flight to get medical treatment in Rome. His wife joined him there. The next morning he was found unconscious because of an overdose. So that was his, I don't know if that was his first attempt, but that's the one that everyone knows about. And then later on in 1994, an electrician actually discovered his body at home, and he was found with a shotgun pointing at his chin. And also his body had very high concentration of heroin and traces of Valium as well. And he actually left a note, and it says, he wrote, "Thank you all from the pit of my burning, nauseous stomach for your letters and concern during the past years. I'm too much of an erratic, moody baby. I don't have the passion anymore, and so remember, it's better to burn out than to fade away. Peace, love, empathy, Kurt Cobain." And he also says to his children, I presume here, "Please keep going, Courtney, for Frances, for her life, which will be so much happier without me. I love you, I love you." Now, this is quite a common thing for people that are feeling suicidal, thinking the world will be a better place without me, my family will be better off without me, and that's just not true. That's how a person feels when they're actually, because your family love you, and you know, okay, and even if, for example, you have like a father like you did, Natalie, but you know, you had siblings and you had other people around you that loved you, and there is someone always, but at the end of the day, even if you have no one, you need to love yourself as well. Yeah. So you know, that's really sad. Another famous person that killed themselves, Adolf Hitler, of course. He couldn't bear the defeat. He died on the 30th of April in 1945 in Berlin, where he and his wife committed suicide by gunshot and cyanide poisoning. And this is what he wrote: "I, myself and my wife, in order to escape the disgrace of deposition or capitulation, choose death. It's our wish to be burnt immediately on the spot where I have carried out the greatest part of my daily work in the course of 12 years service to my people." So some, obviously, you know what he used to be like, but people also kill themselves because they feel ashamed of something, maybe. He felt obviously ashamed in the wrong way, but other people feel ashamed, for example, because maybe they've done something in their past that they're not happy about, that they feel people are judging them. And there are people that take their life because of that, because they can't bear people looking at them and you know, talking about them even. So it's quite sad. Then of course we've got Alexander McQueen as well, a British designer. He became head designer of the Louis Vuitton owned Givenchy fashion line, and in 2004 launched his own menswear line. He earned the British Fashion Council's British Designer of the Year award 4 times, but he committed suicide in 2010, shortly after the death of his mother. Now, I don't know if that was related, if, you know, because some also, and I heard actually the tragedy that happened in Brazil with all those young people dying. Some parents actually killed themselves as well because they couldn't bear the pain of losing someone. And that's such a terrible time, obviously, when you've lost someone that you love and you're mourning and you're not thinking straight at that time. So that's also another reason why people do it. And of course, the most recent one that we'll know of is Gary Speed, who was struggling with the pressures of his post as well as football manager. And apparently this also put a strain on his marriage, and he hung himself at his home. So again, work stress, recession, all sorts of, there's so many reasons, but the underlying thing is that things happen in that time, and you can't see that there's another way, that things can get better, that you're not always going to feel that way, and people just do it. They just don't think twice, and they just kill themselves. When sometimes if you just sort of wait a bit or talk to someone or don't go by all those emotions that you're feeling at the time, it's like sometimes even the next day you can feel differently. But unfortunately, many people take their lives before that even happens.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting looking at these people, because although you say due to his mother, his death, but it makes you wonder whether if it was something that was kind of related way back, you know, because, well, like I said, for myself, it goes way back. It didn't just happen. I remember an instant where I came home, and like I was saying in the video, I caught my husband in bed, and yeah, at that instant I wanted to die again, took the tablets, but it was something that was in me from years ago. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, like, when we hear people saying they're taking their lives or they're tempted, I wonder if there's a root there from way back. You know, for them to just do it, because it does seem a bit strange. You're under stress, I'll just take I'm just wondering, you know, because I'm just being my own
like that
experience.
last push, isn't it?
It's just that last push. I wonder if there was always something rooted there from years ago, but nobody ever knew about. Nobody would know about me unless I'm obviously talking about it, because I always came across like kind of happy, kind of jolly kind of person, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking at some of your pictures before, and they were like, you were smiling in them and everything, but I don't know if we can bring a couple of them up now. So you look happy and like you're having fun, but life was horrible for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You look like you're having a laugh.
Yeah.
Big smile, nice white teeth.
Yeah.
And yet you were going through so much. You were thinking of
Nobody
suicide.
would have ever think, because you know what it is as well, I think, when you're, well, again, I can only speak for myself, but because of the trauma the emotions that I was going through, I never wanted to, you know, like if somebody's miserable, and if somebody's miserable, you don't want to be around them because they bring you down. So I never ever wanted to bring that torment to anyone. Do you know what I mean? So I covered it up, you know, so everybody would say, if Natalie doesn't come, it's not fun. Let's bring her along. So that was my way of making myself feel really good, because
it was fake.
It was fake. It was so fake, because I was envied. You know, so many people used to envy me because I was married to a footballer. And when I remember, we even got a contract to live abroad. We had the opportunity to live in Cyprus, and we were young to get that kind of contract. It was an international player as well. Do you know what I mean? Everybody was like, "Wow," and I was like, "If you only knew." Gosh. It was horrible.
Now, you said on the video, I can't believe he said that to you, but why don't you just die? Why don't you just die?
Yeah.
So you must have been, at that point, you must have thought, you know what, I need to get out of this.
I've got to
and you did get out of it, but what happened actually, Natalie? Because it didn't, someone apparently, a Prince Charming came along riding on his white horse to save you from that marriage, and then what happened?
To be honest with you, Chris, I had a couple of relationships before I met this other guy, but I had a couple, and even with them I got a double take, because with my husband I caught him in bed with someone, then I went into a second relationship where I was in for 3 years and I caught him in bed with someone. So this is like, oh, I'm gonna die, I can't go, but by this time I'm getting on, because I'm like 33 now. And but to cut a long story short, I remember at the age of 38 I met someone, and I thought, now this has to be the one. He was a very comfortable, what was he now? He lived in Chelsea. He was a executive, he was a broker basically in the city. So I thought, you know what, again, I didn't love him at all. But I thought, you know what, I don't know, I've never experienced love. Never experienced it.
You were looking for love, weren't you?
Yeah,
I was always looking. I just wanted to be with someone.
I just wanted to be with someone. So, so I thought, you know what, now a little bit of security, you know, I can't hack this. By this time I've had a son. My son was 1 year old. Here I am living uptown in Chelsea, 5 years with this guy. He ended up to be a pervert as well. And he introduced me to this sex world of S&M and all sorts. And so I tried to escape from him. And the person who was supposed to help me ended up being a pimp for me, and then I ended up in prostitution.
It's like a,
I know,
a horror movie.
I know, it's horrible. I know, it was just horrible. But you know, the biggest shame of that is that no one expects to, because you know, like if you hear of young women saying they you know, they're in prostitution, you say, oh, they're young, you know, in time. But I wasn't young, Chris. I was 40. Nobody goes in prostitution at 40, because I worked with a lot of women in that industry. You know, there were loads of brothels for older women, but you know what? A lot of them have been doing it for so many years. So many years. They do it for a bit, stop, do it for a bit. They've all been doing it in their 20s. They go back. But you know what? Nobody goes into it at my age, and I did, and it's the biggest shame.
What did you think of yourself at that point?
Oh my days! Do you know what? I just had no feeling. There's no feelings. There's absolutely no feelings. I'm just numb. I don't care. I couldn't care less. I didn't care what people thought of me. I didn't care. Do you know what I mean? No value. No, you know, for the many years of wanted to die. How can you have any value for yourself if you want to die from the age of 7 and you grow up with that? Do you know what I mean? There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I can't make any. I can't say, you know, wrong or right. I don't know. You know, when you just have a void, it happened. How did it happen? I don't know. But I ended up in prostitution for many years, and I worked in a lot of brothels in London. And,
but after being with clients, though, what did you feel about yourself after? Because you say you didn't have any feeling about yourself or any value, but how was it after? Were you like thinking, oh my God, I've got to get out of this, or I don't care anymore? Do you know what? Do you know
how many times I used to say I've got to get out of this, but I'd always go back. It was just like a job every day, Monday to Friday. Just a job. I just did it. I don't know. I don't know why, Chris. You know, everybody. You know. It's like saying to somebody who takes drugs, "Why'd you do it?" I don't know. It's just it's an addiction. It's not an addiction to sell your body, but I don't know. I wish I had an answer for that, but I don't know. It's like
because you
the words.
You didn't value yourself.
I had no value, and the words of my father kept coming back to me. That's how you're going to end up. Well, it's okay. My dad said it, so that's okay. He said it, that's okay. You know, so I accepted it because my dad said, although he had died by this time, but he was okay because he said it was okay. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that is really sad looking back now.
What's your worst point?
Oh, there's so many. I had so many bad times. You know, the horrible times in the brothels, the things that you see. You know, some of the stories of the women. You know, there's just too many, Chris. I can't think of one. There's too many.
Hearing your story, Natalie, and for people at home watching, it's like there's no way out for this person. They've just, from a young age, they've been through hell at home, terrible relationships, you know, from one disaster to another. This person they're so like, probably this person is so scarred and so beyond help, there's absolutely nothing that can be done. But you sit here looking gorgeous, by the way, with a lovely smile, and this time it's genuine, it's not a fake smile. And you've come such a long way, and this is proof. And Natalie, you're going to go into how things changed for you and the help that you got as well. But this is proof to you that things don't always stay that way. That's what I'm saying. But people sometimes, they just can't see a way out because they're so into that situation. They're so overwhelmed by that problem. And it could be anything. Like, for example, there's actually a doctor, and he's actually put some reasons for depression. And there's several different reasons that he cites for suicide. And he said, like, he cites depression as one as well. So he said this is one of the most common reasons why people take their life. And he says depression is sometimes unbearable and can warp a person's thinking, maybe making them think everyone would be better off without me, like we said before. But again, he's saying as well that depression is treatable. As you know about my case, if you don't know, you know now. I used to be very, very depressed with panic attacks and everything. And I thought, my gosh, is this going to be my life? I just want to be happy. I don't know what it's like to smile like you. It was saying, you know, I was faking being happy all the way through college, through university. And afterwards, I was faking. I had a big smile on my face. Used to go out clubbing and everything, pretending everything was okay. When inside, it was like I was dying. It was awful. But then depression is treatable because I had counselling. I got the help, and today I'm completely different. I haven't had depression for 15 years now. when I was going through years through it. So, you know, there is hope for people. And I'm going to be reading some more of these after the break, because we're going to go to a quick break. And afterwards, we're also going to be joined by Peter Gibson, who's the director of the Samaritans at the Central London branch. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. Now, many people visit the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol because of the lovely views, and others visit for a totally different reason. Let's take a look at this video. I'm at the Clifton Suspension Bridge, and this place has been nicknamed the Suicide Bridge because every year quite a number of people are going through so many problems and really think that there's no way out of their situation, that they can't talk to anyone, that their problems are just unsolvable. They feel so low, so depressed that they basically jump off this bridge into the road below or the river and end their life. And it's, well, a lot of people come here for the view because it's a fantastic view, whether, you know, it's during the day or during the night. It's wonderful to see. So you can see how some people will come for the view and they see things like in a positive way, and others like miss everything, seem to miss everything. They're so homed in on their situation, they're so homed in on their problem, they can't think of anything else, and all they can think about is the negative stuff. And I can understand in a way, if you are, I mean, coming from a depression background, I know how desperate a person can feel and panicked a person can feel. And when I was never suicidal because I was actually afraid of death, so suicide for me wasn't an option, but I can understand the desperation that people feel and how terrifying it is when you feel that no one understands you and that you're by yourself. But I also know the thing that upsetting me now is that I know that people can get over their problems, and I just get upset thinking that there's people that don't get that far. And they just end it all when I know there's a solution to any problem that person has, and it's just such a waste. I'm going to try not to cry again. It was just such an experience, just standing there and looking down and thinking that, oh my God, people jump off this bridge, and it's such a height as well. And someone was telling me there as well that some of them don't even jump in the river in case they can't end it that way, so they make sure they jump into the road so that if they don't die from the jump, they'll die from a car knocking them over. And that's how desperate people feel. And I also have now Peter Gibson with me from the Samaritans. Now, there was actually a placard there, Peter, from your organisation as well, for, you know, obviously you're trying to help people as well. But tell us a bit about your organisation. I mean, it's very well known, but tell us a bit more about it for those that don't know.
We're actually 60 years old. This November was when our founder first set up the helpline. And we're there to support anyone going through a crisis or a period of despair. They don't have to be suicidal to call us, but obviously we're there for people who are feeling suicidal and those just going through despair. It's a 24/7 service. You can be anonymous, you can choose to use a name, it doesn't really matter to us, because all we want to do is listen to your story, hear what's going on for you. We won't tell you what to do, because actually you probably know better than we do, and even if so, all we're doing is interfering with your life. But it's amazing how powerful just telling your story, talking about those innermost feelings that you may have not been able to tell anyone, or there's no one to tell. And because it's anonymous, because you're not going to bump into that person the next morning and say, oh my God, I told all those terrible innermost secrets to that person, what do I say now? Because it's anonymous. And because you can talk very frankly and very open. There are no consequences. The police aren't going to be sent round to your house. The ambulance isn't going to be turning up on your doorstep. We're there to support you and listen once, twice, in fact, often a lot of times for some people. And it's incredibly powerful. It gives a chance for all those thoughts that are going around in your head to be unscrambled a bit. And even if it's only for the time that you're on the call, it gives you a bit of peace, a bit of respite. And sometimes allows you to see things in a slightly different way. That might be enough, hopefully, to make it possible to sort of deal more effectively with those suicidal
Because when you
urges.
internalise everything, if you haven't spoken to anyone about your problems, sometimes they can seem 100 times worse, but then when you actually start verbalising and telling someone about what you're going through, even if it's just a friend, you know, a friend that you're close to, but but obviously if you don't feel comfortable talking to people that you know, there's people that you can talk to, strangers as well, but like organisations like yours. But just the fact that you're talking about it, sometimes things start to get clearer.
Yeah.
And you're letting it out, and then, oh my gosh, I'm talking about something that I've kept hidden for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people are afraid to go to their doctor. They don't want to admit that they have a problem, or they're scared if they go to their doctor, will they get admitted to a mental hospital or something silly like that. And sometimes by talking to us, they can just explore what it might feel like to talk to a doctor.
Yeah.
They can talk about the issues and actually find out it's not quite as scary. And we will even sometimes, stick with someone, so they might be going to see their doctor, but they can ring us afterwards and tell us how they got on, what happened, and we can hold their hand, if you like, to go through that process. And for a lot of people, that's all that they want. They want to feel that someone cares, and we can do that. And actually, sometimes it is easier for a stranger to show that love and affection for someone just because of hearing what they've gone through. And you were telling your story earlier on, I thought, wow, what a brave and fantastic woman to tell that story, because it does show that through talking, through thinking through things over time, these things can change, whether you're getting therapy or whether you just deal with it yourself.
Now, Natalie, you actually opened up to a stranger, and that's how the journey began to your transformation, wasn't it? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I finally, I was invited to a help centre, and I was able to, this is a word that I'm going to say, the only way I can describe it is I had to vomit everything. So the only way I could describe it, it's vomiting. And once it all came out, I sat with someone in there and I spoke to them about everything that I'd been through, and I had never ever, because who wants to tell everybody about your prostitution, especially at my age? It was such a shame. There's nothing worse. I used to walk and I could never put my head up, just simply because I might bump into a client on the street with his wife, and there's Natalie, where's Sam? That's what I was known as. I was, for years, I used to always walk with my head down. I was never like this. So to be able to sit with someone and just tell them about your story, it was like, wow. And they weren't judging me, and they were just so sympathetic. It was spiritual help that I received, but it was the best thing that I ever received.
And so how did you start sort of changing your life then?
How I started changing was because for the first time, I had hope. I mean, by this time, I'm like 45 years old by this time, and it's like, wow, is there any hope for me? There was hope, because the more I was listening, the more help I was getting, and the more I could think, well, there is another way, Natalie. You can do it, And I received how to do it as well, and I was able to let go of a lot of pain that a lot of people, because my father was even done for murdering my mother. He moved in with a woman next door, and then there was a tragic fire, so then there was a murder investigation, so there was a lot of things I was holding on to, a lot of hatred, a lot of anger, so but I was able to do that through this help centre. And so today I'm totally free. That's why I'm able to talk about it. I can talk about this because I have to talk about it, because it's like, if I don't talk about this and I've moved on, that means at the age of 45, when I thought I had no hope, I know there are women, because I worked with a lot of women who were older than me, who are still in the profession I just left. So if they think they've got no chance now, well, look at me. I turned it around. So I have to speak. You know what I mean? When you invited me to come here, I didn't have no hesitation. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I have to. Because, you know, there is another way. I don't have any desires to die. I don't have any, you know, I work now and, you know, because I used to cheat the system. I was so naughty. I was terrible. I was a waste of space. That's how I used to look at myself. But now, you know, I value myself now and take care of myself, and you know, I'm healthy. I walk 2 hours every day. Walk 2 hours every day. I'm fit. Do you know what I mean? It's like
how glad are you that those attempts failed?
I am so glad those attempts failed. I am so glad those attempts failed, because honestly, I have to pinch myself. How is it that I never died? Because a lot of people, like you just said earlier on, I don't know if it was their first time or how many attempts, but they went. I tried so many times. And even when you were showing that bridge, there's a bridge in Archway called a suicide bridge. I don't know how many times I stood on there as well, thinking I'm going to jump, you know, at the station, just looking, is that train coming? Shall I do it? 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 Something just holds me back. I don't know. So yeah, I am so glad that
and you found people that care about you. It's something that you said as well, Peter, that you know, sometimes people just need to know that someone cares about them. And I was even saying to them earlier, sometimes you may not have been fortunate enough to have a happy upbringing, you know, good family around you. Maybe lots of bad things happen, and you really do think that no one cares.
No one cares.
We're doing this show tonight because we care about you. That's why we're doing it. We have Peter here from a great organisation that's been going for years, that's, you know, inviting you to get in touch if you need help. I'm here for you as well. Natalie's here sharing her story, you know, and if you want to know more about how she got help as well, you can email me. I always tell my viewers, you know, if you need any help with anything at all, any situation you go through, you can always email me as well, chris@chrissybisha.tv. So though you may not have family that care or maybe have abused you in the past, there are other people that care about you. And we have lots of charities that, you know, that are willing to help and stretch out their hand and help you in any way that we can. So please don't feel like, you know, you've got no one else or your problem is unsolvable. My own mother-in-law was suicidal. She had an incurable disease, and that's another reason I think why people do commit suicide as well, because of there is so much physical pain that they can't take it anymore. But I think even in situations like that, I understand. I really can understand why people do it in that situation. But at the same time, for example, in her case, she had an incurable disease and she was healed from it. She got help. And there's always new technology that's coming up and new research into diseases and things. So things change all the time. So it's like, I just think it's such a waste to take your own life. So, you know, this is why I know it's like a sort of a hairy subject and people don't like to talk about it, but I think we need to address it to help anyone that's watching.
Yeah, definitely.
So
absolutely. And it's the fact that whilst there will always be the few people who just act on impulse.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier on, Natalie, quite often people's attempts have long historical roots, you know, going back a long time.
Yeah.
And that helped just to talk and listen, or us to listen, but to talk through what's going on for somebody, to explore potentially the options they might like to pursue in terms of getting help.
Yeah.
That is only a telephone call away. And it's 24/7. Every day of the year, and it can be a really big step. Picking up that phone and phoning the likes of Samaritans. It can be a bit scary. What will they say? What will they be like?
We were talking about that earlier because I phoned Samaritans a few times when I was going through my problems, and Natalie did as well.
I did.
Unfortunately, I didn't allow them to even say anything to me because I kept putting the phone down because I was so frightened. But you know, the help was there. At least I knew about the Samaritans and like.
You knowing, I remember a number of years ago talking to somebody in touch with us, and they just kept our card. They never called back, but they always looked at that card and said, "I know I can," and that was enough to keep them going. And you know, I hope that they're in a very good place now.
Yeah.
But it is the fact that that help is there. And who else can you turn to at 4 in the morning when everything's going through your head and you're not, you know, there's no friends, no family are up at that time?
Yeah.
And again, that help is there.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps the time of the day most often that you need it. Or when you were talking about always keeping that happy face on, you know, keeping, you know, the good face on the whole time, trying to convince people that everything was okay when inside you're crumbling.
Yeah.
Again, who do you turn to when you can't then admit that you're having those problems because the whole facade would fall?
You're actually embarrassed about it, you know. It's actually, it's a shame. I know, you know.
But you're happy today.
Today,
and you got the help from the organisation that you went to, which also has a 24-hour helpline.
Yeah, they have a 24-hour helpline as well.
So you know, so there are people that can help you, and like this is proof. This is living proof here that anyone can change and anyone can be happy, even if you've been through a terrible, terrible past. So like I said, we have run out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you, Peter, again, and good luck with everything that you're doing as well with the Samaritans. And you know, just to, you know, sum up everything, there is, I know it's a cliche, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, but it's so true. There are people that can help you. And like I said, if you want to email me at any time, you can do so on chris@chrissybshow.tv, and I'll be able to help you. I can refer you to different organisations to get help as well. So unfortunately we've run out of time, but we will see you again on Friday. We're going to be talking about how to boost your energy. So we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.